I think Rosie's Traveling Tea Shop, that's actually been optioned for film, but it's sort of had an unlucky ride because I signed just before COVID. So we'll see what happens. But it was really fun speaking to people in Hollywood and pretending I was part of that world for a little while.
Welcome to More Than Mama, the podcast, where we dive into the highs and lows of motherhood and everything in between. The vibe here is coffee or a cocktail with friends meets interesting or inspirational TED Talk. I'm Bryony, an introvert mum coming out of my shell to ask the big questions about motherhood and beyond. Let's dive in. Welcome back to the podcast. I've been so looking forward to sharing this episode with you. Today's guest, Rebecca Raisin, is an internationally bestselling author. She's known for her uplifting and really heartwarming sweet romance books like The Little Paris Bookshop, Rosie's Traveling Tea Shop, The Bookshop on the Corner, and Flora's Traveling Christmas Shop. I discovered her stories when I was very much kind of nap trapped with my eldest when she was a young baby. And in this episode, Rebecca also talks about how writing these and starting to write when her kids were young was a really lovely way to get to armchair travel and explore when, physically that wasn't always possible. And beyond her incredible career as a writer, Rebecca is also a mum of twins and juggles family life with a really intense writing schedule and continuing to craft these really, really lovely and popular novels. In today's episode, we dive into Rebecca's writing journey, how she came to writing and first got published, her advice for aspiring writers. We talk a lot about the different novels and the locations, and it's really, really lovely to get an insight into her creative process. We also talk about raising twins and what sleep was like and breastfeeding twins, and now her boys are teenagers, and it's so lovely to get that perspective on motherhood. I think a lot of the time we focus on the really kind of intense early years, and lots of podcasts and stories and articles kind of really dwell on that side of motherhood, and it's really, really wonderful to hear what she has to say about being a mum of teenagers as well. So grab your cup of tea and get ready to armchair travel with us. And Rebecca is chatting to us all the way from Australia as well. So let's jump into the chat.
Hi, how are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. How are you doing?
Good, how are you?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you. Welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thank you.
For anybody who hasn't come across your books before, could you just give a little intro to who you are and your writing and what it's all about?
So my name is Rebecca Raisin, and I write sweet romance novels. They're usually set in locations I want to travel to, like Paris, Italy, things like that. There's a strong theme of friendship, cooking, travel, and then there's obviously romance.
Amazing. Yeah, I think I'm trying to think which of your books was the first one I came across. I actually found you in our local library, and it was either Aria's Traveling Bookshop or Rosie's Traveling Tea Shop. It was one of those two. And I had them both, and then literally just was obsessed, and then got a ton of others because I loved them so much.
Oh, thank you. I really liked writing those. I like the whole idea of the whole van life movement and, not having a house, being on the road and just whatever adventure comes your way.
Yeah. So how was it that you first got into writing, and also sort of that kind of sweet romance genre specifically, but also the travel element, because obviously all of your books have so many incredible locations?
I think when I first started writing, I wanted to write about places that I wanted to visit, but I couldn't because I had small children.
Yeah.
And they're in school or whatever. So I was like, I wanted to travel, but we couldn't. So I decided to research all the places I wanted to go to and write about them. So it sort of did feel a little bit like having a holiday.
Yeah.
So if you can't go, I suppose you read.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think actually I kind of really needed them for that, because I'm in my kind of very young children's season. And also with COVID and things, my first was born during the pandemic, so we couldn't travel.
Oh, wow.
And actually having that kind of escapism and getting to kind of vicariously escape the living room and the breastfeeding and all of that kind of stuff, and just sort of go to different places was really nice.
Yeah, and I think that's what's so good about reading. If you can't go, you can. You can. I call it armchair traveling. I know
Yeah.
it's a tag on Twitter and stuff, but it is really like a lot of people do use that sort of for their traveling. Like I've had a lot of messages from people who are a bit older and say they can't really travel now for mobility reasons, but they
Right.
feel like they can with the books, which is really, really lovely.
How was it that you first got into writing? Have you sort of written your whole life, or was it something that you kind of came to later on?
Yeah, actually, I always wanted to be a writer, but I was going to be a journalist, but that didn't happen. I ended up working for family businesses. And then when I had my twins, I thought in my spare time that I would do a couple of writing courses and stuff.
Amazing.
But obviously, I hadn't had twins and I didn't know there wouldn't be that much spare time.
Sure.
um, but I did a couple of short story writing courses at night time. And I really enjoyed that because it was just a bit of me time. So it was escaping the house and the chaos of two little babies. And yeah, it was using my brain and, being social and doing something really fun. And so everyone sort of said, "Oh, your little hobby." So I started off writing with my little hobby, short stories, and I was published quite widely with those, and I was winning competitions and things like that. So then I moved on to writing a novella, which was the first gingerbread book, which was only 10,000 words, and I won a publishing contract with that book. And that's sort of how it started. It snowballed from there.
Amazing. It's so funny, isn't it? When I remember in my first pregnancy, you kind of have in your head all this free time you're going to have when you've got the
Yeah,
baby, and you're
yeah,
like, yeah, I'll be able to do all these things. I can write a novel, I can write 10 novels. And then you have the baby.
yeah.
And I only had one. And I was like, okay, so there's no free time. So I can't even imagine with
Yes,
twins, that must be a lot. How did you find
it
that?
was a lot. And I loved it, but I did at first at the very beginning. I was like, right, they're asleep. I'm going to clean the house and get it back together. And then in the end, I think I was like, the most important thing here is sleep.
Yeah.
All of us need sleep. So when they napped, I napped.
Yeah.
But when they got a little bit older, I started writing probably when they were about two. And the good thing about having twins was they sort of I would, sneak off for an hour with my laptop
Yeah.
and they would sort of amuse each other.
Yeah, that's really nice,
So that was
actually.
handy.
Yeah, you don't have to be like the
Yeah.
all singing, all dancing entertainment, I guess, if they've got a little friend
Yeah,
to,
yeah,
yeah. Oh, that's nice.
yeah. It was really good.
Did you feel like becoming a mum kind of changed anything about like your creative process or your writing for you? Did it kind of make you, because I've heard some people say, for example, that they felt more creative and then others say that they actually really struggled for a time.
I think because I started writing after I had them, that I just really appreciated that time, and
Yeah.
I was really aware that I wanted to savor that time. And I made a special point of saying, like when Ash came home or my mum was visiting or someone was here who could look after the kids for an hour or so, I would say, "Can I'm going to go and write for an hour." And I really made sure that I kept that routine up because it was special to me. And I just felt like it was that 1 hour of the day that was exclusively for me.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed it and I got a lot done. So it was I didn't have my phone or anything like that. It was just pure writing and I got so much done. Like I think I got more done then than I do now because now I can easily get distracted. So yeah, it was a good time for me.
Yeah, that's interesting, actually. I guess having that kind of squeeze on your time where it's like, okay, you've only got this 1 hour, you kind of feel like, okay, cool, I'm going to make the most of it rather than, yeah, fritter it away scrolling
Yeah,
or, yeah,
yeah.
whatever it is.
And I would have all like notes that I'd made during the day. So I had all these ideas and I wanted to work on them. So when that time came around, I was ready to go.
Yeah. Are you like a hard copy notebook person, or do you sort of keep it on your phone, or how do you kind of do that?
Yes, I'm very old school. I'm a note taker, and I still am now. I'll still plot with a notebook, but then I type it all out.
There's something nice about pen and paper. Like I feel like for me that's the ultimate. Although since having kids, because I don't necessarily always have it on me, I kind of resort to the phone, but like I don't like it. It
Yeah,
feels less, I don't know. There's something missing for
yeah,
me when it's a
yeah. I know
screen.
exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not that great with tech. Well, I am pretty good with technology, but not like Gen Z or
Yeah.
anything. So I find it easier to look back at notebooks. So I'm like, oh no, where did I put that file? Or
Yeah.
at least I've got the first dedicated notebook, and I can always refer to that.
In terms of your like creative process kind of thing. Like, can you share a little bit about that maybe, and kind of, where you get your ideas from, and do you tend to plot quite meticulously and then kind of follow that, or do you just kind of explore? And I think people call it like, are you a plotter or a pantser? Is that the expression?
Yeah, yeah. So I was a pantser early on. So I would just have a random idea. Like sometimes it would be like a name of a flower, or a restaurant that I'd heard about in Paris or somewhere in Italy I wanted to go, and I would expand on that idea with Rosie and Aria. It was the van life, the idea of van life and living like a minimal life, not with all the goods and the bills and the house and the mortgage. So that kind of interested me. But in terms of plotting, now I have to plot to pitch my ideas to my editor. So I don't have to plot too much, but I do find it easier now to plot so I don't get in trouble when I'm halfway through and I don't know where it's going.
Yeah.
So I do roughly plot. Now I'm not one of those like forensic plotters, which I would love to be, but I'm not. So I do plot, but then the story does still change shape, and a lot of the times I find the characters do take over. So with Summer at the Santorini bookshop, I had plotted that, and then the grand character became this larger than life person, and she just took the
Interesting.
wheel. Like it was really, really strange. Like she felt very real, and I almost felt like someone else had taken over the story for me, and I was like, okay, we'll see where this goes. So yeah, so it's every book is different, but I do try and get that first plot down.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Do you find that kind of characters who weren't maybe originally intended to be center stage often take over? Because Gran in Summer in the Santorini bookshop is like incredible. Like she's so much fun. And I think is it Escape to Honeysuckle Hall where you have Estelita? And she's
Oh
not like the
yes,
main
yeah, she
character,
was a
but
bit
she's such a personality and like a force in that novel. And yeah, do you find that you kind of
yeah. I
often
think it happens maybe every fifth book or something, and it's quite surprising. Like someone will just take over, like Estelita, she did as well, and I really. Like, and then my brain always goes, so they need to have their own story. But by then the next ideas come along, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to leave you.
yeah.
But yeah, it is hard, and I do try and think, okay, you need to write about your heroine, but it's always the side characters that I don't know why they take over, but yeah, they do. So I have to be strong
Yeah,
and
like focus.
fight for my heroine. Yeah.
Do you find that sort of character tends to come first, or location, or plot, or is it a little bit of sort of variety depending on the story?
Yeah, it can be both, but I think that I do usually try and think of location first. And I also think because we're planning the books like a year in advance, sort of thing, I'm also thinking about the season. So, is it a summer book? Is it a
Mm.
Christmas book, or autumnal, or whatever? And then I try and find a location that I want to write about in that particular weather. So then I'll think of the character, and once I know the setting. So that's usually how it is working now because I'm writing a lot quicker than usual.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Where do you usually write? Like, how does that kind of routine look for you?
I've got a really nice little office now at the front of the house, which is nice. The sunlight comes in there, so it's a nice place to write, nice and bright. So I drop the kids off at school, and then I usually try and get into writing straight away because if I go down the social media rabbit hole, that is just takes too much time. So I do save the social media and stuff for
Yeah,
night time.
makes sense. They design it that way, right? It kind of hooks you, and then
Yeah,
before you know it, you've spent like an hour scrolling, and it's just like, yeah, not ideal.
yeah, yeah. I was like, should have used that time better when I had the energy.
Yeah. How long does it typically take you to write a book, kind of from start to finish?
So originally it would take me about 6 months, but now I've got a better routine, and my kids are a lot older now. They're
Right.
16. So I have a lot more freedom, and they're sort of doing their own thing and don't want to hang out with me that much anymore, even though I'm cool and I tell them I'm famous, even though I'm not really that famous, but just and they're like, we don't care. But now I've changed publishers and I'm writing to a quicker schedule. So now I'll do a first draft in about a month, and that is a very, very messy first draft. I wouldn't show
Wow.
that to anyone. It's very rough. And then I'll send it to my editor. I'll polish that up, and then I'll send it to my editor. around the 6 week mark, and then we get it back. And then I'll do structural edits, which will take about 4 weeks. And then we do copy edits and proofreading after that. So it's about a 3 or 4 month turnaround per book.
Wow, that's amazing. That's super quick.
Yeah, it's really quick, and I'm just getting the hang of it now. I just changed publisher, and I think it took me a little while to realize like I have to be at my desk every day. I've been writing 7 days a week to try and
Wow.
get used to that.
Yeah.
But now I feel like I've got the routine down pat, and I feel really comfortable in it now, and I'm managing my time a lot better.
Yeah. Do you tend to split it up into like a word count goal per day, or how does that kind of work for
Yeah,
you?
I try and do that. So I'll try and do a word count goal, and I'll try not to open social media until I've hit a couple of thousand words. And then I'll have
Yeah.
lunch, have a break, walk the dogs, and then come back and do another afternoon sort of spell.
Wow. So it's like a kind of full day's
It's a
work
full day,
essentially.
yeah. Yeah. So I do
Yeah.
about 8 hours writing roughly. And then I do social media stuff, probably 3 hours a night. And I do like, the marketing side of things. Like I've got a Facebook group and all the social media. And then I do a lot of blogs and things like that for the promotional side of things.
How do you find that sort of balancing with your kids? Obviously, with them being a bit older now, the sort of like day to day needs are a bit less intense, like imagine at 16, but then still it's quite the juggle, right? To kind of have the family life and the full time writing and
Yeah, it has been a bit of a juggle, especially working on the weekends a lot more than I would normally do. But they've been really supportive, and they're really good about it. So they're also helping out a bit more around the house, which is great. And yeah, they're pretty good. Like we'll all sit in the lounge room at night, and I'll just be on my phone doing stuff, mindlessly, really. And they're watching TV or whatever. So we're still all together.
that's nice, sort of multitasking.
Yeah, and I do try because I'm not really a TV person anyway, so they're happy to watch, and we'll chat about whatever they're watching, and I'll just do all my work. Um, yeah, so it's not too bad, but I don't think I could have done this scheduling and this long a day when they were younger. I definitely couldn't have, and I wouldn't have wanted to.
Yeah, it's tricky, isn't it? And I guess it's a bit more unpredictable when they're younger, but then as time moves on and they kind of, yeah, the day to
Yeah,
day demands, they
yeah.
kind of have a bit more independence. You claw back some of that time.
And I do try and sort of schedule time with them that we know for sure. Like Friday nights, we have movie nights, and Saturday, we always do something together as a family. So there are those times that are really special, and we make sure we do them every week.
What do you kind of feel are maybe your favorite or the best bits about being a writer? And then sort of on the flip side, are there bits that you like a lot less or would say are kind of the worst bits in inverted commas?
The best bit, I think, is connecting with people online and in person. So I've made so many friends, book bloggers, readers, writers, publishing people, and I've, on what I call my research trips, which are really holidays,
Yeah.
to go to whichever beautiful place I want to write about. I've met a lot of those people around the world, which has been amazing.
Oh,
So
lovely.
yeah, I've met people in Australia and England and Paris and Amsterdam, and so it's been amazing. And whenever I travel, I'll put a call out for wherever I'm going and try and catch up with as many bookie people as I can, and that's been really really special. So it's probably my favorite thing, that it's not really about my writing; it's more just the love of books that bring us all together, which is really cool.
Yeah.
And the worst part would be the deadlines when I'm, the last week of the deadline. I hope no one ever comes to my house that week, and I tell people I'm on a deadline, please do not call, do not come over. Definitely don't surprise visit me, because I'm in my pajamas. I haven't done my hair for a week and it's not pretty. But, it's only 1 week out of
Yeah.
however many.
Right. Yeah. How do you do your research actually for the different locations? So if it's somewhere that you haven't been or haven't done a trip to, what does that kind of look like?
I actually do a lot on Instagram, and I know that probably sounds
Amazing.
quite basic, but the amount that you can find on Instagram,
Mm,
especially, I like to try and find things that are like off the beaten path and the
right.
hidden gems of a place. So I wouldn't typically write about the, top 5 things you'll see in Paris. I try and
Sure.
find things that are unusual or that you haven't heard of. And a lot of that I get from Instagram, and then I go through their blogs or their vlogs or whatever they happen to be, podcasts. And yeah, I do spend a lot of time on that sort of stuff, trying to find the coolest things no one's ever heard of.
Yeah.
And then I really want to go there and it's sad.
Yeah, I bet. Did you do research trips for many of them? Which of the kind of destinations have you managed to get to?
So I've been to Paris about 5 times, so I feel like I can really write about that quite well. And a lot of the places I've written about, I've been to there. And I've been to Venice. Where else have I written about? I haven't been to Santorini, but because of that, I probably spent a bit longer researching
Right.
because I wanted to make sure I got it right. And I've had a lot of messages from people saying, "Oh, are you a local?" And I'm like, "No." So that was really good because I
That's
was a
nice.
bit nervous about writing about that.
Yeah.
But I definitely want to go there. So that'll be definitely number one on my next list to travel to.
It's so beautiful. I've only been once, but that was actually where we got engaged in Ia in
Oh,
Santorini,
wow.
and it was so beautiful. It's one of my favorite places, I think, that we've been on holiday. So yeah,
It's just,
definitely
and
recommend. And it was
that is
amazing in the
amazing.
book. I feel like in the book it was like exactly like it
Oh,
is, you
that's
know.
good.
Yeah,
It's just so beautiful and it's such a summery place. I just think it's
yeah,
perfect.
yeah, stunning. And yeah, I always felt like I couldn't get it in photographs to look as amazing as it does in real life. You know, when you get home and you've got 100 photos of like the landscape and things, but it never quite does it justice.
Yeah. And it's like you can't capture that light. I feel like the
Yeah,
light's always different in places like that, and the photo just doesn't quite get that.
yeah, completely. Do you have any favorite characters that you've created of all the sort of books? Is there anyone that in particular sticks out for you?
I love Gran in Summer at Santorini
Mm.
bookshop. She was just so fun. And I love Evie as well. I love Evie for all her awkwardness, and her, desire to not be around people. I really love that. I also really like, oh, who else? Genevieve in A Love Letter to Paris. She's a little bit, I like writing older characters. I think that they can offer a lot to the story.
Yeah.
So she was a lot of fun as well. In the book that's coming out, which is called the new one, it's coming out in September. That's Christmas at the Little Paris Hotel. There's a character in that called Manon. She's the cousin of the heroine, and she is really, really funny. Really, like, she's got a really dark sense of humor. And I haven't written a character like that before, so I had a lot of fun with her.
Oh,
She's
that sounds
very
amazing.
straightforward and upfront and just hilarious. So yeah, she's probably my favorite.
And what's that one called? Sorry,
Called Christmas at the Little Paris Hotel.
Christmas at the Little Paris Hotel. Nice. Are you quite far along with that one, or where are you in the process?
Yeah, that's finished. So that's
Amazing.
that's coming out in September. So my part of that's all been done. So that's good. We're actually doing the cover reveal for that tomorrow, and then it'll be
Ooh.
yeah out to the world. So I really enjoyed that book actually. It's obviously a Christmas story, but it's about a woman who renovates a hotel and she finds a 100-year-old mystery within the hotel. So, and it's a literary mystery. So it was kind of
Ooh.
cool to write that. And then she explores literary Paris. So it's probably a different view of Paris than most people would normally read about.
Yeah. Oh, that one sounds like right up my street. So I'm, yeah,
Yeah.
ready for that one.
Hope you like that one.
Yeah, that's a really nice theme through a lot of your books. I mean, obviously, you clearly love books and reading and writing, but so many of them are like perfect for bibliophiles because they, you know, either you have characters with bookshops or sort of closely connected to the kind of literary. Is it Elodie's Library of Second Chances? She works in the library, and then you've got bookshops in Aria's is traveling, and you've got the one in Venice. Trying to think of them all. Is that
And there's
something
one
that?
in Paris.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know I just keep writing them and I keep meaning to move away from that. But then there's something that catches my eye. Like I like looking at the hashtag bookworm problems, and we all have the same issues, like
Yeah.
when a book comes out in a series and it's taller than the other four that you've got, and just little quirks like that. And so something will spark interest and I'll be like, oh, now I have to write another one.
Yeah.
So I just really like the scope of it. There's so much about bookworms that we can write about, and I just really enjoy it.
Yeah.
The one I'm writing now is in a bookshop in Paris as well.
Oh,
I've done it again,
amazing. Oh,
but
lovely.
but this one has a special sort of theme. She gives these potions and what she calls potions and prose. So she serves them in a test tube, and it's all very theatrical. And so
Oh,
it's really really sweet, this one. So I can't wait.
oh, amazing. That sounds incredible.
I had to do a bookshop, but a different way again.
Yeah. I mean, I guess when you're someone who's like obsessed with books, which so many readers obviously are, I guess it's just like a kind of fantasy thing that so many people connect with, like this idea of like having a bookshop or kind of working, even though so many, like the majority of us aren't necessarily going to be able to do it, right? But it's that kind of like life that everyone wants to live. And so to see it
Yeah.
played out in these different ways with different characters, different locations, you kind of, I think for bibliophiles, you can't really exhaust that.
No, and I feel like it's sort of building that bookish community.
Mm,
we're all sort of connected with this bookish community online, but in the book it kind of brings us all together.
yeah.
So that's sort of what I always go for, thinking I think people like that because they like that sense of community.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. In terms of names as well, because you've got some really sort of beautiful and quite unusual names for some of the characters. Do you find names are really important to you? Do you name characters first? Do you name them later? Like, how do you kind of find the names that you're going to use?
That is a good question, actually. I name them first, and I actually spend so much time looking for names. It's ridiculous, especially with the French names. I always want to get it
Mm,
perfect. And French names are also beautiful. So
yeah.
I just spend so long looking at baby names. It really is crazy how long I take. And I always name them first so that what I'm trying to do when I name them, I actually do character profiles before I write. So in my notebook, I'll write down what color hair they have, eyes, all their physical characteristics, and then I write about their personalities, what they like, what they don't like. So I feel like if I have their name, they become more 3D to me, they become real. So it becomes like
Right.
an actual person, not just a character. So I try and flesh all of that out. And by the time I start writing, I know my heroine inside out. I know everything. And I feel like that makes a more authentic story.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. It's like a real person, isn't it? Rather than just sort of a
Yeah.
sketch of, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
And then you sort of like if something crops up in the book that you hadn't plotted, I'll know exactly like would she like that? Would she hate that? What would she do? And a lot of the times I use that because then I will do things that I know she doesn't want to happen for conflict,
Mm,
So I'll be like,
yeah.
oh, she will hate that.
And then
So
you
I'm gonna do it.
make sure the name kind of fits that whole profile.
Yeah, that persona, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I read something once that there are some authors who can write an entire sort of first draft by sort of numbering characters and then come back and naming them later. And like to me, in my head,
Oh,
that sounded like awful. I just don't kind of understand that because I,
it's
like
quite
you,
sterile.
yeah, like I'm obsessed with names and I feel like they kind of end up being quite fundamental to like who someone is or like representative
Yeah.
anyway. So I just love looking at baby names and things for the sake of it. So like, yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah.
I feel like names are just so much fun. Like I could spend forever looking at them.
Eventually I'm like, oh, just pick a name. But I'm like, no, I can't. It's not right.
Yeah. Were you similar about names for your twins?
Yeah, but I actually thought I was going to have girls. I don't know
Did
why.
you?
I was so sure. And so I had the list of girls' names was really huge. And then when we found out they were boys, I was like, oh, it felt like there was a spanner in the works, and I didn't have a very big list. And yeah, I wish now that I had been as into writing as I was, as I am now, because I think I would have given a more literary name. But anyway, they're
Yeah.
named.
Yeah. No, I feel like that part of the process for me is always fun. Like my daughters both have names that work in English and French. So we've got an Eloise and we've got a
Uh,
Charlotte. Um, and although we never call her Charlotte, but yeah, my husband likes long names on
oh,
the birth certificate. But yeah, like I that for me was like one of my favorite kind of bits of pregnancy. It's like that, what are they going to be called? But like you, I found boys' names kind of I just didn't really think about them too much, but I ended up
yeah,
having
they're
girls, so
not.
it was
I don't
fine.
know. Yeah, I love that name, Eloise. Actually, my character in the book that I'm writing now is I've got an Eloise.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, but I keep writing Elodie because I'm used to the other character Elodie, so I'm gonna have to check that at the
I
end.
love Elodie too. That was in the running. And then my husband preferred Eloise, but they're both beautiful. I love French names. French names are
Yeah,
just gorgeous, aren't
yeah,
they?
they are gorgeous. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite character you've created sort of out of all the books? I know you mentioned Gran is a particular one, but in terms of like the kind of main protagonists, obviously Evie and Santorini, but are any of them sort of closer to kind of you and your personality, or do you deliberately make sure nobody kind of maps too closely? I mean, they say that you can't help but put a little bit of yourself into books, but yeah, how does that kind of fall for you?
Yeah, I did love Evie. And I think probably Rosie from Rosie's Traveling Tea Shop. She was one of my favorites as well. And I think that was because she had such a big character development, and she came so far in that story, and I just loved her. I loved her and Aria. I think the closest one would be Flora from Flora's Traveling Christmas Shop. She's a little bit wacky and a little bit whimsical, and I am like
Oh
I'm
yeah,
like that.
I love
And
that
so
one.
when I said to my friends who read it, do you think that was me? And they were like, yes. And I was like, yeah. But actually, my mother-in-law thinks that Evie is me. She read Santorini and she was like, "Oh, that book was just
Okay.
you." But I don't know if when I read author friends' books, I always picture the heroine as them. So I don't know if she was just doing that.
Yeah. How much you kind of assume versus, yeah.
Yeah, I just do it with every author friend. Like I read T.A. Williams, he writes cozy mysteries, and the main guy was, I think that his heroes, well, not hero, the protagonist is about maybe he's not quite the same age, but roughly. And I just kept picturing him on solving all these murders.
Yeah. Do you find that you tend to read, obviously you mentioned cozy mysteries there. Do you tend to read mostly within the genre that you write, like kind of sweet romance, or do you read everything, anything? What are your kind of favorites? And is there anything that you don't like?
I read everything. I don't actually read a lot of romance, probably because I write it every day,
Yeah.
and so I don't really want to read it. But I read a lot of historical, like I like a lot of
Nice.
the Tudor era books. I
Mm.
love those, and I read a lot of thrillers. I like a whodunit and that kind of thing. But I am pretty open. I read a lot of travel books and memoirs,
Oh, yeah.
obviously, because I love
Yeah.
that whole idea.
Yeah.
But yeah, I read everything. Classics. I go through times where my son and I go through where we'll read classics. He'll read it and then I'll read it and we'll chat about it. So yeah, I'm pretty open to everything.
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't really read horror though.
Yeah. Same. Yeah. Bit scary.
The
Not really
world
my
is
bag.
horrifying
Yeah,
enough.
exactly. There's
Yeah.
enough to be frightened of. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. You kind of touched on this earlier in terms of sort of winning writing competitions, and then you won your contract, but just sort of in terms of a little bit more detail and how you got to from kind of writing for fun and then turning professional. What was that journey to publication like? And do you have any advice for people who are hoping to kind of turn writing from more of a hobby into actually getting published?
Yeah, so I felt like I was really lucky with that. So I wrote a Christmas novella, and I saw on actually one of my friends saw on Twitter the competition for a Christmas novel. So I entered it and I won the two-book contract, and then I signed with that publisher and I stayed with them for 10 years. I've only just moved. So I felt like it was a really organic way of growing for me. So I started with novellas, and once I had the confidence that I could do a novel, which my editor really encouraged me to do, because it felt like such a big jump from I went from 10,000 words to 20,000 to 35, and then 70 to 90 felt just so huge. And I was worried I was going to get lost.
Right.
But I had a lot of support. And then once I had done that, it felt natural to write at that length. Um, but in terms of anyone getting into it now, it's a really good time to be a writer because there's so many more digital publishers and opportunities in the industry.
Mm.
Whereas when I first started, it was more digital was brand new, digital publishers were brand new, and it was a lot harder to be seen, really. And the submission process was a lot harder. So, but now there's a lot of digital publishers whose submissions are open. So it is a really good time to be a writer. So if I was new and looking at what to do, I would join my local writers centre. They have a lot of um, support there, and they can sort of point you in the right direction depending on where you live. But I would also start following all the publishers that are digital first publishers. So what that means is they'll publish your ebook first. So you won't be in supermarkets and paperbacks and things like that, but you'll be you'll have your ebooks and audiobooks and that online. And it's a really great way to get your foot in the door.
Yeah.
And then you can build your profile and your branding from there.
Yeah, it's amazing how much the industry has changed, isn't it? Just with technology and the internet and
Yeah.
all of that stuff. Like it doesn't look anything like it did when like we were growing up, or even like
No.
5, 10 years ago.
And I feel like it's changing again now. I think we're really seeing a huge rise in even audiobooks now becoming really,
Mm,
really popular compared to, say, 2 or 3 years ago. And I think the way we read is changing. It's good to have a digital publisher because they're sort of on top of all of that.
yeah, yeah, definitely. Do you prefer to read hard copy books versus Kindle or digital, or how do you kind of consume?
Um, I read both. I have so many books though that my house is just full.
Yeah,
So it's like we're actually building a new house now. We're building a smaller house. So I'm not sure how I'm going to fit them all in the
yeah.
small new house. So I think the Kindle is good for that as well. And I originally bought a Kindle just to read my own stories because I've pick up typos and things like that that are on the Kindle when I've finished.
Yeah.
So that's the only reason I had a Kindle. But yeah, now I do read a lot on Kindle, and it's also good. Like while my husband, because I'm a bit of a night owl, and he gets up really early for work, so with the Kindle, it doesn't really disturb him like it did with my bedside lie down.
Yeah. Yeah. Whereabouts in Australia are you based actually?
I'm in Perth, so on the
Okay.
west side.
Yeah. Oh, amazing.
Yeah,
I've
so
never
we're
been, but
the sunny hot one.
yeah, I've never been, but I would love to go. My dad was actually born in Australia, but then moved back to the UK very young.
Ah,
But yeah, it's on the list. Like I really need to get over there.
yeah, you love it. Where was your dad born?
So he was born in Glenelg in, I think it's near
Oh,
Adelaide.
Adelaide.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Yes, I lived in Adelaide for a while.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I only remember it because it's spelt the same way, but is it a palindrome?
Yeah,
Where
Batford.
yeah.
Palindrome, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I know. We all learnt that at school because I actually went to school in Adelaide,
Oh, okay,
so
cool.
we all thought that was very cool.
Yeah. Would you set any books in Australia in future? Have it, I don't think any of them have been set there so far, have they? No.
No, I don't think I would. I find I get asked this all the time actually, and I don't really have a good enough reason. I think maybe just because I live
Yeah.
here and I find it
Just
just
more fun to go
life.
somewhere else rather than
Yeah, somewhere I'd travel to.
yeah. Do you have any kind of new locations planned for future books?
I do. I'm actually writing one. I've got two more planned after the last Paris book. And they're sort of holiday destinations, but they're not at a place. So they'll be like, I'll just say one of them. It'll be
Yeah.
like on a cruise, but different, like a
Oh,
holiday.
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, a different kind of holiday. So I found some really cool travel destinations that you would do sort of a bit longer term. So
Right.
yeah, it's really cool. It's yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds exciting. What do you tend to do to kind of unwind when you're not writing, if you get any time to kind of do that?
We go to the gym. I've been pretty bad with the gym lately though, but we go to the gym a lot. Three out of four of us in this family, we all go
Oh,
together.
lovely.
And I love listening to yeah, it's really good. I love listening to podcasts when I'm at the gym. So they'll chat with each other and I just have my headphones on and that's another switch off me time. So I love that. We also
Yeah.
like going out to restaurants. We like trying all different kinds of cuisines from around the world. So, and I don't really like cooking, but my husband does. So we also do a lot of cooking together where it's mainly just me sitting there watching him having a glass of wine while he cooks.
Amazing. That's the dream. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And we travel whenever we can travel. We travel a lot.
Yeah. Oh, that's really nice. It must be amazing actually to kind of get to kids being the kind of teenage age where you can do a lot more of that stuff and have them enjoy the same or similar things, right? Like, going to the gym, going for dinners, all of that kind
Yeah.
of stuff.
Well, one of my sons is really into war history. So we're actually planning that. That's why we haven't traveled for a little while. So we're actually planning a big epic trip to he wants to go to Germany, Poland, all around all those sort of countries. And I haven't been to any of those places. So while he's going to do more of a history side of it, I'm just going for the food. So that'll be fun.
Yeah, fair. Yeah, he can give you the lowdown while you eat the
Yeah.
amazing stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's a bookworm like me, so we'll be going to all the gift shops at all the
Oh, lovely.
museums, and we're going to buy all the books.
Oh, nice. You can do like the literary tour of
Yeah,
each different location.
yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any kind of favorite authors? Do you share any with him? Like, do you guys kind of read the same stuff or?
We do read a lot of the same stuff. So but he actually reads very widely. So he reads a lot of historical books, and he reads a lot of classics and literary sort of style books. So I do try and tempt him with some YA. I love the Inheritance Game series, and he was like, "Mm." And I was like, but it's so good. And we're actually thinking about writing a book together. We've actually pitched an idea to my
Oh,
editor. So
amazing.
yeah, so he's really creative and he just thinks so differently to me. So I love, we sit there and we brainstorm. We've got this huge whiteboard and we've plotted the whole story. And so it's really, really cool. And I hope that it works out because I'm just so interested to see how he'll bring it to life.
Yeah.
And it's something we like love doing together. So we have a lot of appointments where we go here, there, and everywhere, and we spend all that time in the car plotting. So I'm like, write that down, write that down. So yeah, it's really cool, and it's something we can share together.
Oh, amazing. That's so special. That's really nice.
Yeah,
Does he kind of, do you guys kind of envisage that you'll plan it together and then he do the writing, or how do you kind of know how you would want to collaborate?
yeah, that's the thing we're not sure about. So we're both definitely going to write it, but we're not sure if we're going to do it dual point of view from the characters. So it'll be about this brother and sister who are having problems. Like it's a dysfunctional family, but at the core of it, they love each other. So they have to get past this one big conflict that comes out. So we were thinking maybe I could write the daughter and he would write the son, and we could do it from
Okay.
that. Yeah. So the plot would still move, but he would do one character and I would do the other, and we can go forward that way. So that's what we're thinking. We're just waiting on approval from my editor to go ahead, but we've
Oh,
plotted it
amazing.
all. Yeah, it's going to be really fun.
That would be incredible. Do you find that the twins are quite sort of, I mean, this is kind of obviously they're going to be because they're their own people, right? But how did you find that sort of with them growing up? Were they always very, very different? Were they similar?
They are so different. So Jax is the bookworm. He is a huge reader, very creative, and will, despite my best intentions and buying books for 16 years, Will just is not a reader. But I haven't given up,
Yeah.
and I still like he if he'll say, "Oh, read this book," I'm literally at the bookshop 2 seconds later. I'm like, "Yeah." So I try and encourage him because I
There you
feel like,
go.
yeah, I feel like with people who aren't into books, it's just they haven't found the right one. And then once they do find the right
Yeah.
one, then they're on that path. So I haven't given up.
Mm.
But yeah, they're very different. But Will's creative in a different way. He really loves movies. He's actually autistic. So his special interest is movies. He loves watching them. He loves making movies. He knows all the running times of movies. He knows all the producers and the directors. And so his
Wow.
yeah, his life goal is to be in the movies. So yeah, so we're going to try and make that happen somehow. But yeah, he writes a lot of scripts as well. So they're both definitely very creative.
Wow. Yeah. That's incredible.
Yeah.
If you had to turn any one of your sort of novels into a film first, do you have one that you feel like you would want to go for?
I think Rosie's Traveling Tea Shop, that's actually been optioned for film already. So,
Amazing.
but it's sort of had an unlucky ride because I signed just before COVID, and then
Yeah.
everything sort of stopped over
Timing.
COVID. And then there was the writer's strike. So then it was paused for that. And now the option runs out at the end of the year. So this is the third option for
Oh,
it. So
okay.
I'm not sure
Uh,
what's going to happen.
Fingers crossed it.
Yeah. So I'm like,
Yeah.
"Ooh." So we'll see what happens. But it was really fun speaking to people in Hollywood and pretending I was part of that world for a little while. Actually, it was quite terrifying.
Did that kind of help inform, because Evie kind of works in that
Yes.
world, doesn't she, in your Santorini? So I guess that kind of gave you an insight into her industry
Yeah.
and
So actually, that's where that came from. So the woman that found Rosie and sort of negotiated the deal and stuff like that. Not my agent, but the person that linked the movie studio with me. I actually asked her, "What is this called? Is there this and this and this?" Because we still chat. And I said to her, "What is there such a job like this?" And she was like, "Yeah, it's a book scout." And I was like, because that's kind of what she
wow.
was when she signed Rosie. So I got all the inside info from her for that because I thought, gosh, that is an amazing job.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Like,
Reading
just, yeah,
books. Yeah.
choosing books that you want to make into films,
Yeah.
like the dream,
Yeah.
read as much as you want and then get awesome movies
Yeah.
off the
And
back
then
of it.
watch them on the big screen. Like I was like, that is perfect. I want that to be my job.
Yeah, if you weren't a writer, what would you want to do? Like, I mean, that sounds perfect, right? But
Yeah,
yeah,
if I couldn't be a book scout, I actually really love the marketing side of writing. And when I say marketing, I don't mean like the sell. I just mean like making the promotional material and
yeah,
all of the things that go with it. With Boldwood, my new publisher, they're really encouraging and they work with me. So we've made all these really cool things for the upcoming books. Like there's a for the Christmas book, there's a literary map of Paris for all the places that were in the
oh,
book, and there's all sorts of things we're doing together, and they're really like collaborative. So I love that. Like it's just like bringing the book to life in a different way.
yeah.
And so, yeah, I would probably get into marketing if I wasn't, because I just find that really fun because every day is different.
Yeah, that sounds really fun, actually getting to be involved in that process for your books as well. I mean,
Yeah,
I think sometimes you hear authors say that they actually really hate that kind of side of it. They just want to kind of shut away and do the writing and then
yeah,
disengage. But I, yeah, I always kind of wonder because I feel like it's another sort of creative way to, like you say, bring the books to life and also to connect with the people that are reading them, right? Because you're kind
yeah.
of you're using it to kind of bring the story to the people that are going to read it and enjoy it.
And also, sharing stuff on social media that's kind of dynamic is fun as well. So something they can interact with and yeah, I love that we're working together and I can come up with all these ideas. Like for the Paris Hotel, the Christmas book, we thought of all the things you get in a hotel, like the do not disturb sign and the pillow menu, but I did like a reading pillow menu. So there's like the Kindle pillow and there's this pillow. And so she's making all the cool stuff to share. So it's great. I don't have to actually make any of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Just generate the ideas and
yeah,
then boom.
just the fun part.
Yeah. And I guess actually social media gives you that way of like connecting, like you were saying earlier, sort of the community and making friends all over the world and stuff. With social media, you actually get to do that on such a big scale. Whereas, yeah, if you were writing 10 years ago, even, I don't, a bit
Yeah.
longer maybe, but you'd only get to meet people at what, signings or if
Yeah.
that?
And then it wouldn't really be the same connection, they would move on probably. So yeah, I really love
Yeah.
and that's why I really like to try and so with my Facebook page is probably my preferred community just because I just find it easier. And I always make sure I message every single person back. And I really try and support everyone on that page. And it's just a beautiful community. Like some people have been on that page for the last 10 years with me. So
Wow.
I just love it. Like I've been there when they've had their babies, and there's all sorts of,
Mm.
I know them really well. So it's actually
Yeah.
really sweet.
So that's kind of where you spend sort of more of the time is that kind of Facebook page.
Yeah.
So that's Rebecca Raisin on Facebook.
That's Rebecca Raisin, author.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you've got your Instagram as well. Rebecca Raisin writes
Two.
too. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's because I got kicked out of my Rebecca Raisin rights. So yeah, I had to make a new one.
Well, it's amazing that you've had that Facebook community for 10 years. I mean, I guess you've been writing like such a long time now.
Yeah. So it's just over 10 years now.
Yeah. How did you kind of find you kind of mentioned that obviously as the boys got older, you had more kind of time. Did you stay sort of home with them and juggle the writing with them for that entire period, or did you end up needing to go back to work or choosing to go back to work in another capacity over that window?
So I started writing as a hobby, as what everyone in my family called it. So the first couple of years when they were little, they were only two. So I wasn't earning very much money, but by the time they went to
Mm,
school, so they start kindy here at 3. By the time they're in year 1, I was earning enough to stay home. So I just stayed home and yeah, it
amazing.
was really good. And the good
Yeah.
thing about writing is just so flexible. So with Will, he's my son that has quite a lot of medical issues. He had a lot of appointments
Mm.
early on, a lot of medical therapies and stuff like that. So it was really good for me to have that flexibility. I don't think I could have had a job anywhere else with the amount of time all of that took. So it was good. I could do all the appointments and then I could write at night or fit it in however. So it was really good for me.
Yeah, I guess it's the perfect kind of working setup because then you can build your schedule
Yeah.
around, any other commitments and family.
Yeah.
And like you say, if you had a lot of appointments, that's tricky, isn't it? If you've got an employer sort of
Yeah.
demanding certain face time.
Yeah. I don't know how I would have managed it. So yeah, it's lucky the way it worked out.
With the kind of, I'm amazed like at anyone who is able to kind of juggle all of that, but also like twins. kind of blows my mind just because I really struggled, I think, with my sort of first baby transition. You said you absolutely loved it. Like, obviously it's really intense at the start.
Yeah.
What was that kind of twin experience like? And do you, I don't know, for anyone who's expecting twins or they run in the family, do you have sort of tips and advice?
Well, I heard early on that I wouldn't know any better because I hadn't had a single baby first. So for me, the twins was just natural. That's how two babies are. So I didn't know what one baby would be
Right.
like. I only knew what two babies were like.
True.
But it was hectic. And I remember saying to people early on that the first 3 months were a blur because I was breastfeeding and they were breastfeeding at different times. No matter how hard I tried to get them on the same schedule, it just didn't work.
Yeah.
So, and the breastfeeding, because they were smaller, I was breastfeeding more often. So it literally I felt like I would, you know, breastfeed one and then 40 minutes later breastfeed the other. So I just felt like I didn't get any sleep at all. And I would
Yeah.
fall asleep with one, and my mum would come in and say, "You can't fall asleep with them," and I'm like, "Oh, I haven't had sleep, for 3 months." So
I need to
it was a
sleep.
blur. But my mum was here at the time. She stayed for 6 weeks, and that was really helpful. But after that, I got into a really good routine. And like I said to you, I stopped trying to do everything and be everything, and I just slept when they slept. And I
Right.
think that's the number one important thing. Like,
Yeah.
don't worry about anything else. And if you can prepare like food and things like that for yourself, like I remember not being prepared and I hadn't gone to the shops, and it felt like such a big mission to get both of them into the car, to get down to the shops, to get something for lunch. So if you can just even get your family to stock up your freezer with ready-made meals, just little things like that can make it so much easier. Because I feel like as well, you really depleted in that early time, especially if you're breastfeeding. You really need that energy. You need that good food.
Yeah. Did they sleep like at the same
No.
time? So you were able to kind of nap a bit?
Oh,
Because
I
yeah,
did.
I
Yeah.
kind of imagine them like waking each other up or
I
something.
did nap whenever they did, but they didn't always sleep at the same time. And I had one, Jackson was a non-sleeper, and he actually stopped napping so early as well, like at about just over a year. And I
Right.
was like, why? But I just
Yeah,
snatched
why?
any time I could. And Will was really good. He just slept all the time. So as long I would be awake for Jax, because Jax, they both had oh gosh, I forgot what the name of it is, where they get that burning thing from the milk.
Oh yeah, reflux.
Yeah, so they both had that as well. So it was a bit hard, but I did have a lot of support and I did sleep at night. So Ash would get home and I would say, right,
Yeah.
I'm going to have a bath, because that was like my big thing. I just want to have a bath. And he would just, have the kids and I'd have a bath and a nap, and then I just feel refreshed. I'd be like, okay, I can do this.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was hectic, but it was good. I remember it just being looking at them when they're asleep, and they're the most beautiful things. So it was just a beautiful time, even though I was
Yeah.
sleep deprived.
Yeah. It's like also, I guess once you're out of it, it feels impossible when you're in it. But then, a little bit on, you're kind of like,
Yeah.
oh, so lovely. Like, what an amazing time.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
you miss it, and it goes so, so fast. Like, I can't even believe that I've got
Yeah.
16-year-olds. It feels like that went so fast. So yeah, I know it might feel hard, but just yeah, love every minute of
Yeah.
it.
Do you feel like there was kind of an age that's been a favorite, or I always kind of think, well, they probably all have their like amazing bits and challenges, right? But yeah, how do you kind of find that now that you're at the teenage end?
Mhm. Well, I want to say now, because we're connecting on a different level now with the reading
Mhm.
and the writing and all that sort of stuff. And the travel, like they'll enjoy the travel a lot more now, and they'll happily go to museums where I had to drag them into art galleries and museums, and I'd be like, you will learn this history. But now they love doing that. But I also loved when they were younger, like say the 5, 6 age, where everything like Christmas is a magical time, and birthdays are so much fun. Like I love that time as well.
Yeah, amazing. Sorry, actually, I just really need to ask this because like I'm kind of having a tricky time breastfeeding my youngest now, because she's so bitey and her sister wasn't like that at all. So I yeah, it's a new experience for me getting like attacked with really sharp
Yeah.
teeth. But breastfeeding twins sounds like quite the undertaking. How did you find that? Because obviously you said that like it felt like, especially at the beginning, you're just constantly feeding.
Yeah.
And do you have any kind of advice for people that are hoping to breastfeed twins?
I just I just tried to do it as long as I could. I did buy one of those breastfeeding pillows for twins, but it
Mm.
just didn't really work. So it was just easier to do them one by one. And I think it was lucky with having twins, they do that the milk kept coming because there was always someone
Yeah.
having a feed. So that luckily the milk was there, so that was good. And but yeah, Jack's actually one of them finished a lot. Will actually stopped breastfeeding a lot sooner than Jack's. He just one day stopped. And so that was a little bit tricky. But I just was like, it is what it is. I think he was about 8 months
Yeah.
old. And I really wanted him to continue, but like I was more concerned about his health. So, and he wouldn't
Yeah.
take formula. So it was a bit of a scary time. So we saw a pediatrician
Mm.
because we are actually seeing her for his medical conditions. And she suggested that we got one of the very old school formulas that didn't have fish oil. And he drank
Right.
it straight away. And we were like, oh,
Interesting.
because it was really, I was really panicking because he wouldn't take the boob and he wouldn't take the fancy formula. So she goes, go
Right.
old school. And so that was really handy to
Wow.
know. And Jack's breastfed for a lot longer.
Okay, yeah, that is interesting. Because for anyone listening, obviously under 12 months, they need to either be breastfed or formula fed or a combo. They
Yeah,
can't yet move on to a different
yeah,
type of milk, right? So that's really interesting.
yeah. So it was. She said it's actually a thing. A lot of kids don't like. A lot of babies don't like the taste of fish oil, and I was like, oh, I
Mm.
didn't even know it had fish oil in it. So I was like, okay, great. So we tried that, and straight away he was fine. And then he went back to sleeping really well, and it was disaster averted.
Yeah. Do you think your son, who's sort of into the writing with you, does he want to kind of be a writer in future, or
Yes.
like obviously work in a kind of creative capacity, it sounds like?
Yeah, so he is in year 11. They're both in year 11. So he wants to go do a Bachelor of Arts after year 12. So, and that's that will cover his historical passion as well. And he wants to be
Yeah.
a writer. So he wants to write probably historical fiction, but we're going to do a fun YA in the interim. So he'll either do historical
Amazing.
fiction or historical non-fiction.
How does it work in Australia? At university, can you, if you do a Bachelor of Arts, can you select different things from sort of different areas? So you could do history and sort of writing and literature and things like that. Can
So
you mix and match
the
or?
Bachelor of Arts comes with all of that preset, but I think there is a few that you can mix and match. But the one we've chosen, or the one
Okay,
he's chosen, has everything in it that he wants. And we're like, oh, that's perfect. So yeah, so he's going to go
amazing.
down that road. I did say, are you sure? And he was like, yes. So I was like, okay, we'll support you. So I think I always knew they're both so creative. So I always knew they'd sort of go that
Yeah.
way. So yeah, it's really cool and I
Yeah.
love it.
Oh, it's such an exciting time, I think. Like, I feel like remembering feeling like you had all of that kind of stuff ahead of you
Yeah.
was so much fun. So, like, going through it as a parent alongside them must be really cool.
It really is, especially because they know what they want to do. And I feel like I
Mm.
sort of had a vague idea and I wasn't sure, but they know they're like, this is 100% what I want to do. So we're trying to support that as much as we can, like with the travel for Jax. It might sound frivolous, like, oh, we're going to go to all these countries, but we feel like it's actually really important for him to learn all that and go to those historical places because he does want to learn more about the war history and he does want to write about it. And so it's almost like a research trip, really,
Yeah.
and then he'll go to uni and he'll have all that background information. But he's one of those kids, like he's doing ATAR history, which is like the second level history. I don't know what you would call it over there. It's like above the general. And
Okay. Yeah.
he got his huge history textbook and he read it over the school holidays. Like, and I was like, oh, you're one of those kids, you know. So he'd read the whole 600-page textbook before the year had started.
Oh my God. Wow. Amazing.
Yes, that's he's really, really passionate about it. So I was like, well, whatever we can do, we'll help you trying to get on that path.
Yeah, that's really cool that they kind of know, and then you can kind of just support them and be like, okay, cool. Like,
Yeah,
how can I help facilitate
yeah.
this and like share this with you and stuff?
And with
Yeah.
Will, I have to sort of manage his expectations a bit because he wants to be a director. So he feels like he's just going to call up
Mm.
one of his favorite directors, and they're going to hire him. But Will does have an intellectual disability, so he doesn't quite understand that's not the way it will work. But what our plan for Will is to get him in the movie industry. So there's a
Yeah.
company being built here where they do a lot of training for film and media. So they have all the different divisions there, and it's going to be this huge production teaching place. So we're hoping to get him in there, and so he'll be in
Wow.
the industry, and we can help him. Even we just say you can be a director one day, but let's just start at the bottom. We can work our way up. So
Yeah.
because I feel like with Will having a disability, he does get labeled and he does get pigeonholed. Like you'll go work in a
Right.
charity shop, and that's kind of the level everyone has put him at. And I just feel that's grossly
Really?
unfair because
Yeah.
he still has dreams and hopes like everyone else. So it's
Yeah.
really, really important to me to like shrug those labels off
Completely.
and say, come on, like let's aim a bit higher.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm determined with
Yeah.
that.
And like, capabilities and like talent and all of those things, just because you have like a disability or sort of, differing kind of needs and things to other people doesn't mean that he also doesn't have like amazing kind of talent and skills that he can share too, right?
Yeah.
It's the kind of,
And he's still got aspirations. Yeah.
yeah,
So I feel like, and I've always said this ever since he was tiny, that he will surprise people because
yeah,
I saw how special he was from a young age, and he's only built on that. He is going to surprise people. Yeah. I mean, he
yeah.
does movie reviews online, and he's so cute. Like I just think, yeah, there's a lot of talent there, and I feel like kids with disabilities just need a bit more support, and we
Yeah.
need to yeah, stop labeling them and putting them in a box if they can only do this.
Yeah, like not coming at it with like judgments and also like old school preconceptions, I guess, because actually I think there
Yeah,
are a lot of outdated attitudes about that kind of thing.
yeah,
Whereas actually it might just be that they need a different kind of support. Yeah.
yeah. So watch this space.
Yeah. I mean, the film industry is probably, that sounds incredible, like to sort of get him in, because I guess a lot of it, it's tricky for people just because so much of it seems to be about contacts as well. So, like, I guess if you can get a foot in the door and then, yeah, you can support him as much
Yeah,
as possible with sort of taking each next step.
yeah. And I said to him, it's also about sort of exposing yourself
Mm.
to each part of the industry. So if you worked with, say, do some work experience with lighting or catering or whatever, he could sort of work his way around this training center in all the various departments. So you're learning from the ground up about the movie industry. So then you have this wealth of knowledge, and he can build from there.
Yeah.
So yeah, he can't just go and work for M. Night Shyamalan, who's his favorite director. I'm like,
Right.
no, I don't know his number and I can't call him, but we'll start here.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe down the line and then, yeah.
Yeah, we'll get there.
Yeah, exactly. Baby steps. Oh, thank you so much. This has been amazing. I'm conscious of your time. So we always ask guests these final three questions. So what do you do or enjoy that's kind of just for you?
My favorite thing, I think, is learning Indonesian. I've been learning Indonesian for about 3 years.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and that came around because we go to Bali a lot because it's really close to where I live. It's like a
Amazing.
really cheap, quick holiday. So if you want to go away for 4 days, and I wanted to be able to speak to the
Mm,
locals, so I felt like it'd be more respectful if I, could speak their language. So
right.
yeah, I love it.
Oh, that's incredible. Is it really tough to learn?
It's tough now that I'm past the basics, yeah. And some of the words are like, 16 letters long. I'm
Oh
like,
my God.
why? Why is this too long?
That's incredible though. That's such a cool thing.
Yeah. Well, I'm at the point now that I can actually have a conversation. So it's really fun. Like actually, being able for them to understand me.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's really cool.
And what has been your biggest revelation about motherhood?
Ooh, I guess well, that is a tough one. I think it's how fun it is. Like it's like I
Mm.
think it's hard, but it's so fun. Like I couldn't imagine, just having us two on the weekend without the kids. Like now it's always like, what are we all going to do together, and trying to meet the needs of everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that it's fun.
Oh, that's a really nice one because I think it is important that social media is giving people a space to talk about the hard stuff. Like I think people need that, but at the same time, sometimes you feel like it goes so far and then you just have this constant stream of like how awful everything is and it's like
Yeah,
yeah, you're kind of like, oh, you want to kind of share and also like celebrate the good bits too, right? And like say it actually can be really, really fun.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And what legacy or impact do you kind of want to leave behind, whether that's kind of, work or through writing or family or whatever that looks like?
Oh, legacy. I guess my main thing I think is just being a good person. Like, and I always say to my kids to always give back something. So, like I said, we do spend a lot of time in Bali, and when we go there, we help out a few families, and we help them all through COVID. So I want my kids to have like be instilled with that need to. You can always, aim for this and do this, but let's always give a little bit back. So I think that's the most important thing. And I noticed it a lot over COVID. There were so many people struggling, and we just tried to help out and stuff, which was only a tiny bit. Like, it didn't take away from what we had.
Yeah.
So and we've had a lot of people help us out emotionally, I guess, and spiritually when things were bad for us with Will and the diagnoses and stuff. So I think it's always, nice to give back.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That's amazing. Thank you so, so much. This has been so much fun. Please, can you sort of let us know the best places for anyone to kind of find you? Any one book that you recommend they start with, if there is one, and where they can find your latest book?
So you can find me on Facebook at Rebecca Raisin Author, and on Instagram, Rebecca Raisin Writes Too. And my latest book, I think the best one to start with is A Love Letter to Paris. And you can find that online, or I think it's at the Works already. But most of my books are at the Works. At the moment, there's some in Tesco and Sainsbury's. And or online. And if you're in Australia, Dimmicks.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. That was great. It was really fun.
Thanks so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did. And to celebrate, I really wanted to gift friends of the podcast something to take away. So if you would like the chance to win one of Rebecca Raisin's novels, all you have to do is simply rate and review the More Than Mama podcast on Apple, Spotify, wherever you're listening, and then DM us a screenshot of your review. So DM at the More Than Mama pod on Instagram. And that's it. You're in with the chance of grabbing one of her books. Full details and T's and C's will be on the More Than Mama pod Instagram. This isn't affiliated with Instagram or Spotify or Apple in any way. This is literally just a gift from me to you. Take care, guys. That's it for today's episode of the More Than Mama podcast. Thank you so much for listening and being part of our community. If you enjoyed today's conversation, don't forget to subscribe, rate, leave a review, and share with a friend to help us reach more amazing mums like you. Let's continue the conversation. Connect with us on social media at the More Than Mama pod, and I'm also on there as Bryony Writes on Instagram. It's always great to hear your thoughts, stories, and ideas for future episodes. Chat to you soon.